everybody. Welcome to Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. Thank you very much for tuning in. I am your host, Joe Palmetto. I'm a practicing criminal defense attorney in Pittsburgh, PA. And what I'm going to do today is just go over some of the news that involves or invokes the criminal law. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Also, I'm still learning how to use this streaming software. So, on my YouTube, I had a tab set up for the live stream. I'm not on that tab. I'm on this different tab. So, my apologies. Let me see if I can fix that real quick, and just let everybody know that I'm actually over here. So let me just jump into this chat. Hey all, I am in a different video. Just FYI, I messed up my streaming stuff. So hop on the channel and find the live video. Okay, my apologies, everybody. Before we dive in, and I see everybody can jump into the chat here, just getting a hold of this is really it can be tough. Figuring everything out here with Streamlabs and all the digital stuff, it's just generally not my forte. But I want to talk about a couple of news stories. I was going to talk about, if you guys want to talk about, we can still talk about it. Why women fall in love with serial killers. There's actually a word for it, and we could do that. But I instead, I wanted to, because there was some interesting news that came out, I wanted to hop on to the news. So, raise your cup, your glass in the air. Cheers with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Cheers. And I know everybody's probably going to laugh at me as these caffeine-free Diet Coke, but I'm 43 and the late caffeine, it really affects me now. So let's take a look at some of the news of the day that affects the criminal law. Oh, one second before we go into that. I'm going to start something. I'm going to start a docket. And what we're going to do with that docket is we're going to follow and report on essentially between 5 to 10 current criminal cases. So I'm going to capture news like this, but certain cases we're going to follow. So if you guys have cases that you want me to look into, that'd be great. And as they come along, we'll jump into them. I think you probably already know from my channel, some of the cases that I'm going to go into. But any new cases, I don't know, this Kiefer Sutherland is probably not going to be a long case, but this Timothy Busfield case is actually very interesting. Could be a very long case. But, we're going to go into the Nick Reiner case, and probably follow the Luigi Mangione case, and then any other criminal cases you guys think are interesting. Okay, so Kiefer Sutherland allegedly punched, tried to choke Uber driver before arrest, law enforcement sources. Sutherland was arrested last week in Los Angeles. New details are emerging about the arrest of 24-star Kiefer Sutherland, and I don't necessarily think of him as a 24-star. I think of him as being from Lost Boys. That's how I think of Kiefer Sutherland, right? Early 90s stuff. But I guess he became an even bigger star on that show, which honestly I never really watched, but I heard it was good. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News that Sutherland allegedly punched an Uber driver multiple times and tried to choke him, according to an allegation from the driver. As previously noted, there were no injuries that required medical treatment in the incident. According to sources, the Uber driver told police that he got out of the vehicle to get away from Sutherland, and that it allegedly appeared to those on scene that Sutherland was under the influence during the altercation. The Uber driver called 911 while allegedly running away from Sutherland, sources told ABC News. Sources further said the driver had a dash cam type camera in his car that may have captured some of the alleged incident. So that'd be interesting to see if that's out there. ABC News has reached out to representatives for Sutherland and Uber for comment. Sutherland has not been charged. ABC News has been advised by the district attorney's office the actor will likely be charged next month, shortly before a scheduled court appearance on February 2nd. According to police, the radio call regarding the incident was for an assault involving a rideshare driver near the intersection of Sunset Boulevard and Fairfax Avenue in Los Angeles. I've never been to Los Angeles, but I've heard of Sunset Boulevard. Sutherland was arrested on suspicion of felony criminal threat, serious charges. According to jail records, he posted a $50,000 bond and is due in court on February 2nd. $50,000 sounds appropriate in a case like this. Sutherland, known for his role as President Thomas Kirkman on ABC's Designated Survivor, also never watched it, and for his Emmy-winning role as Jack Bauer in the action series 24. That's not what Kiefer Sutherland's known for. He's known for playing a vampire in The Lost Boys. He is the son of the late actors Donald Sutherland and Shirley Douglas. So here's what I'll say about this, and the article kind of nailed it. An assault is generally a misdemeanor, right? Like if you punch somebody or you slap somebody, you kick somebody, you push somebody, you're talking about a misdemeanor. In Pennsylvania, it's called a simple assault. If you cause serious injury, it can be upgraded to a felony. But strangulation is generally a felony. Under Pennsylvania law, there's a felony strangulation and a misdemeanor strangulation. And a felony conviction, while for a first-time offender, very well may not result in jail time. It could, and it's very serious. So the strangulation charge is the one that he has to worry about. Now, how far this case goes will depend on how upset the victim is, how strongly the district attorney feels about this case, the police. But I will say, I think, you know, it might be a little more serious than usual because there's a lot in the news and a lot of crime and assaults and things that are associated with Uber drivers. And I don't think it's something that they really want to tolerate. You know, I think there's going to be a push for these Uber related, because not only are passengers in Ubers at risk nowadays, it appears that the drivers are also. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I see we got mass one. I had a simple assault, was in Schumann for 6 months. Sometimes these strangulations, if it's very brief or it's not like two hands on the neck, they will withdraw it or they'll reduce it to a misdemeanor. I would guess if he's in the back of the car, this is my guess, and you guys can fact check me on this if we come back. My guess is that he grabbed this Uber driver from behind, and I'm gonna make a note right now because I want to see if I'm right here. Okay, you guys can see how good my predictions are. Okay, I got a bunch of pencils here. What's a lawyer without a pen is nothing. It's like a soldier without a gun or a knight without a sword. So my guess is that the Uber driver's in the front seat and Sutherland's in the back seat. Although with Ubers, you can sit in the passenger seat in the front, right? Anyway, in the back seat, my guess is that he reached around and is somehow like punching and hitting him. And I bet if he grabbed his neck, it was from behind, and it might have been some sort of like bear hug or even a chokehold of sorts. Probably not your traditional two hands on the neck. That's my guess. It's not your traditional two hands on the neck, although he might have been choking him like from behind. It's like a rear naked choke out of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So my call here is that it's a choke from behind, and that the felony will be reduced to a misdemeanor, and then he will probably take some alcohol courses, maybe substance abuse treatment, pay costs and fines, and do a year or a year or two on probation. Kind of funny, and when I saw Kiefer Sutherland in an Uber, it caught my attention. But we're gonna keep a docket, and we're start keeping track of Joe's predictions, okay, as these cases develop on my channel, because I want you guys to come to me, because I want you to understand. I want you to think that I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I think I know what I'm talking about, but let me prove it, right? Okay. So this story caught my eye today as well. Actor Timothy Busfield's attorney say an investigation undermines state's child sex abuse charges. We'll get into this article, but I didn't know that Timothy Busfield had these child sex abuse charges. The actor Timothy Busfield. Stop. Actor Timothy Busfield accused of child sex abuse on the set of TV show in New Mexico. You would back in the day. I recently started rewatching. You guys know this is such a nerd. The West Wing, the TV series with Martin Sheen from late '90s, early 2000s. And I've watched that show. I've probably watched that whole series twice before in my life, and this is my third go around. And it's one of those things that I can just watch, and it's just like I put it on before bed, like I could watch Seinfeld or Cheers, and I put it on before bed and I just watch it and go to sleep. Like I could watch every episode of Cheers in order and never be bored. And that's kind of how The West Wing is to me, as nerdy as it is. Anyway, Busfield. Busfield is, again, to me, I don't know what else he's been in. We'll have to look. But, to me, that's where I recognize him. I recognize him from The West Wing. He was like a journalist. I don't know if he's in every single season, and he has a love interest with the press secretary for the president. Anyway, he's a pretty good actor, but this stuff is crazy. Let's see if we can listen in.
Actor and director Timothy Busfield is facing sexual assault charges after an arrest warrant was issued in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Busfield is charged with 2 counts of criminal sexual contact with a child under the age of 13 and a count of child abuse. The alleged acts took place while he was directing the show The Cleaning Lady. A child told law enforcement that they were touched inappropriately by Busfield, and he's also accused of grooming children. No word on a response to those allegations.
So these are some really serious charges. And as you can see in this video, he's in jail.
24 hours after Timothy Busfield's first court appearance on charges of alleged criminal sexual contact of a minor and child abuse. Today, the district attorney in Albuquerque, New Mexico, giving new details.
Under New Mexico law, each count of criminal sexual contact carries up to 6 years of incarceration, and child abuse carries up to 3 years.
The charges stem from alleged sexual abuse of a child he directed on the set of the TV series The Cleaning Lady.
The district attorney's office in Albuquerque takes very seriously these type of charges, just like we do all the cases.
The 68-year-old actor ordered held without bail. Prosecutors argue he poses a serious danger to children with a sustained pattern of predatory conduct. In a motion filed by prosecutors earlier this week, a parent contacted law enforcement alleging Busfield assaulted his 16-year-old daughter decades ago during an audition for his theater company in Sacramento. According to court documents, the father claiming Busfield kissed her and put his hands down her pants, and later begged the family to not report to law enforcement if he received therapy.
This matter is very much still under investigation.
Busfield denying all of the allegations against him in this video obtained by TMZ.
I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. They're all lies. And I did not do anything to those little boys.
The Emmy Award-winning actor is known for his TV roles on 30-something and The West Wing.
Has there been any discussion of the 25th Amendment?
No.
His wife is actress Melissa Gilbert. Her publicist saying in a statement, Melissa stands with and supports her husband.
So, these are very serious charges, as I'm sure you're all aware, and I think he's in some, like, anytime somebody get these types of charges, okay, they're probably in some serious trouble, okay, but the district attorney, these prosecutors, and I deal with prosecutors every single day, is if they believe that you are, let's say, a true first-time offender, they may take it a little bit easier on you. But if they think you are someone who has done this sort of thing in the past and has shown a pattern of this type of conduct and got away with it for whatever reason, then they are going to gun for you a bit harder because they think you got away with it, and now is their chance to nail you. And I can give you a scenario. Like, I had a client who had a bunch of DUIs in the past, and he just kept he had a good attorney in the past, and he kept working out like these really good deals to get the DUI reduced from the most serious to the least serious, and kind of each one of them ended up being a slap on the wrist. And then he got one, and he came across a DA who looked at his prior record and said, how did this happen? And decided that it was going to be his job to set the record straight. Okay. And I had to pull a lot of, let's say, legal jujitsu in that case to get a result that we thought was fair. So the thing with Busfield is he's got this old allegation, and the news is all over. And I watched the nightly news earlier with James Muir or whatever, and they had some attorney who worked and who had knowledge of that old allegation from 15, 20 years ago, and they were asked him, well, what was your reaction? He's like, well, I wasn't that surprised when I saw that this happened. So this DA is going to think this guy got an old allegation he got away with. He might have been putzing around, pulling this crap in between all these years, and finally we have a chance to nail him. And you can see he's in jail now. I haven't looked this up, but he may be just denied bond outright, because like we just saw with Kiefer Sutherland, they gave him a $50,000 bond. I mean, for a Hollywood actor, it's chump change. But Busfield's rich. His wife's an actress. Comes from a family of actors, and he's still in jail. So they must have denied his bond outright. Now, the other thing too is, well, and let's see how old he is. Okay, Timothy Busfield. The DA was saying each one of these carries 6 years. That actually doesn't sound that harsh for each charge to have a maximum sentence of 6 years. In Pennsylvania, I think that would be a little stiffer. Our felonies kind of start out at maximums of 7.5. But every state's different. They do business differently. All right, but this guy's 68 years old. He's 68 years old. He may spend the rest of his life in jail if he's given a consecutive sentence on this, right? 68 years old. Even if he's convicted of 2 charges, 6 plus 6 is 12, he's going to be in jail until he's 80. And, men don't live that long. So this is an existential situation for him. In addition, although, when you're at his age, 68 years old, it doesn't maybe hit as hard, but I almost guarantee, because the equivalent charge in Pennsylvania would turn you into a registered sex offender for the rest of your life. And the lower registration ranges is 25 years, even if he was a 25-year registered sex offender, that will take him until he's 93 years old. So this guy is in some deep, deep doo-doo. And, you know, these cases can be tough to beat because if the child comes off as the child has likely already been vetted, already had what's called a forensic interview where a trained psychiatrist sits down with the child. He is in some shit. He is in some serious shit. You know, juries tend to believe the child, even if they don't hold up that great on cross-examination, because a child's memory is not going to be the same as an adult's. So I think Timothy Busfield is in a world of crap, and he's looking at potentially a life sentence. So I don't know who he hired as his attorney. Let's see real quick. Timothy Busfield, lawyer. He's going to need somebody good. Timothy Busfield's lawyers say, let's read this article. Say, studio investigation undermines state charges. Actor's legal team also writes he passed a polygraph, and parents of the cleaning lady child actors have a history of fraud. So, certainly, all of that, I'm going to say this, like, number one, the polygraph is not going to come in at trial. Polygraphs are not used at trial, no matter which direction they go. If they say you're a liar, they say the truth. It's considered junk science by the law. So the science behind polygraphs is just not solid enough for courts, American courts, to accept it. It's junk science. It's basically disregarded, although it can oftentimes be used to try to persuade a DA. Say, hey, Mr. District Attorney took a polygraph and it went fine. And the DAs will say, okay. Sometimes they'll change their offer based on that. The child actors have a history of fraud. I don't know what that history is, but that is actually a very viable defense in a case like this. And if that's true, it could give his case a lot of strength at a jury trial. But let's read. Can I read the Rolling Stone, or do I have to pay? Do I get one article? Lawyers for Timothy Busfield said in an opposition filing Friday that an independent investigation into the accusation undermines New Mexico's child sex abuse case, and Busfield should be released from jail. On Wednesday, Busfield faced a judge for the first time since turning himself in. That's a bit of a mitigating factor. He turned himself in on 2 counts of criminal sexual contact of a minor, 1 count of child abuse. So only 3 counts total. So he might even, if he makes a deal, he might not, 18 years total. He might be able to get a deal for like 3 to 6 years. Okay. The actor did not enter a plea at the hearing. The judge ordered Busfield held without bond until his next hearing. So he might be able to make a more detailed bond argument, and maybe the judge will let him out on like house arrest, electronic home monitoring with a lot of terms and conditions, reporting conditions, things like that. Busfield's lawyers argued for Busfield's release in court filing, stating the actor previously passed a polygraph. Again, that's like, look, if you're a lawyer, you're going to use all the weapons you have, right? Just like if you're a soldier, all the weapons that you have, at one point in time, you're probably going to use all of them. You have to choose the right times. And that's something to argue, but it's not that powerful. Let me just put it that way. The actor previously passed a polygraph. Warner Brothers' independent investigation found the allegations unfounded. So I'll tell you what, that if I was his lawyers, I'd be getting my hands on that report. The filing also cited that the child actor's parents both had a history of fraud, and the father had admitted to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and was disbarred. So the father was an attorney, maybe. The father's not testifying here. At least I don't know. Maybe he would. So whether or not the father's history of fraud is admissible will be a matter for the court to decide. It'll be interesting. The state offers no reliable proof, only allegations advanced by witnesses with documented histories of fraud and financial exploitation. Well, that's a little bit different than this, but it certainly it could be something that could really help him at trial. Contradicted by a comprehensive studio investigation, refuted by witnesses and objective risk assessments. For all these reasons, the independent investigation that undermined the state's allegations at every turn, the affirmative findings of the polygraph and ABEL assessment, the overwhelming evidence of character and community support, and the absence of any reliable proof of dangerousness, the state cannot meet its burden of clear and convincing evidence. No conditions of release will reasonably protect the community. And I have to say, I agree with his lawyers. I think that he will get released. So we're gonna make another prediction. Okay, so that's my Kiefer prediction. My first prediction on Busfield, okay, is that he will get out on bond. And we'll come back and look at Joe's predictions. And remember too, I'm making these predictions based on limited information. Okay, we'll see how good I do. The filing was also accompanied by letters of support for Busfield written by Melissa Gilbert, as well as his 30-something castmates. I know in the very bottom of my heart that Timothy would never do anything to cruelly exploit or harm anyone, let alone a child, Olin wrote. That's very nice, but, you know, judges hear stuff like that all the time. Busfield said in a video statement prior to turning himself in, I'm going to confront these lies. They're horrible. They're all lies. I did not do anything to those little boys. I'm going to fight it with a great team, and I'm going to be exonerated. I know I am, because this is all so wrong and all lies. Prosecutors alleged in pre-detention filing that after news of Busfield's arrest went public, another victim's father, Colin Swift, reported to law enforcement that his 16-year-old daughter was abused by Busfield several years ago at an audition in Sacramento, California. So the question is that the only other old allegation, or are there more? Busfield begged the family to not report to law enforcement if he received therapy. I think that's the old one. Colin Swift, a therapist himself, thought at the time that this was the best thing to do. Prosecutors also cited two other incidents where Busfield was accused of sexual assault. Once in 1994 and a second incident in 2012. Neither incident resulted in criminal charges. Now, that changes the analysis a little bit, okay? Because, so at his trial, these prior allegations and incidents likely would not be admitted for the jury to hear. They keep those things out of the trial generally. Prior bad acts, sometimes they can come in, but generally they stay out in order to guarantee a fair trial on the case right here in front of the court. However, for bond, for purposes of whether or not the individual should be released, pending the trial, because remember, you're innocent until proven guilty in the great United States of America. At least that's what the Constitution says. And so this will come in for bond. This will come in for bond, and the judge will be allowed to consider there was an allegation in 1994, a second incident in 2012, another one a couple years ago, and then this new allegation for which he's on trial for. So he's looking at it appears to me, four separate allegations with four separate individuals, and that's going to hurt him. I still am going to predict that he will get out on bond. I mean, the judge hasn't let him out yet, but I'm assuming they haven't had a full-blown bond hearing, and that's what's going to be happening. So I think he's going to get out because, his problem, I'm not saying, and this is not a value judgment, okay, but his problem is being around people of a younger age. They could let him out and put him on electronic home monitoring and not allow him to work. Only allow him to do necessary functions like going to the doctor, grocery shopping, religious functions, and hopefully that would keep the ideas that would, is that he wouldn't be in a situation where he could do any harm, and because he's innocent till proven guilty, it would still preserve his freedom and his rights in line with the Constitution while also protecting the public. And he turned himself in. So the bond is essentially meant to do two things, right? Number one is bond is supposed to protect the public, okay? But bond is also number two, supposed to guarantee that you will show up to your court dates and not flee the country, flee the county. So him turning himself in, hiring counsel, and addressing the charges directly, that showed that second concern that he wouldn't show up to court is mostly alleviated. Like, I think you can be confident that he's going to show up to court. Plus, if he's got if he's on electronic home monitoring, they're going to know where he is. So this is mainly about whether or not he's a threat to the community. And he may be, but in certain situations, if you can alleviate those situations and then take into account innocence until proven guilty, then I do think that they're going to let him out, and that's going to be my call. This is an interesting case. I think I'm going to put this case on my docket. So my docket is going to include Nick Reiner, Luigi. We're going to follow that trial, and then I think we're going to follow the trial of Timothy Busfield, and we're gonna go from there. And yeah, Mass one in the comments is laughing, guilty until innocent. We as a defense lawyer, I understand says that in the law, and I say that to my juries. But the truth is, I think most jurors come into a trial thinking, when they see the person sitting there and they're in a courtroom and there's a judge there in a robe and there's all these people and like sheriff's deputies and lawyers, the assumption is this guy must have done something, or girl, or we wouldn't be here. That's the assumption. So as a defense lawyer, you're unraveling that assumption right from the beginning. So it's good that it's written into the law, but it's good that it's written into the law. But in reality, jurors, in my opinion, they walk into a trial thinking this person must have done something to be here, and they don't think, oh, he's innocent, this and that. No, they're like, we're here because he did something wrong, and they tend to trust the district attorney, and they tend to trust the police. And so the defense lawyer has to remove that veil. It's part of my job. Okay, Mass, you want to follow Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk. Okay, maybe I'll start reading up on the Tyler Robinson case. I didn't think too much about that one. I kind of felt like they had him dead to rights, and so I don't know. But, they're even when they have you dead to rights, you never know. You never know how the trial's going to go down. They thought Karen Reed was going to be done dead to rights, and Karen Reed won that case. All right. So the next story, and this is somebody asked me in one of my prior streams, like if I ever had threats, and I answered that, and then this story pops up. So judge wife shot and wounded at home in Lafayette, Indiana. A manhunt continued Monday after a judge and his wife were shot and wounded in their home in Lafayette, Indiana. Tippecanoe Superior Court 2 Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife Kimberly were shot at their home on Sunday, State Supreme Court Chief Justice Loretta Rush said in a statement. The shooter was still at large Monday night. Lafayette police, excuse me, they responded to the home on Mill Pond Lane on Sunday afternoon, found two victims. who received medical treatment and are in stable condition. Police said Stephen Meyer suffered an injury to his arm and Kimberly Meyer had an injury to her hip. This remains an active and ongoing joint investigation involving local, state police, county sheriff, county prosecutors. According to a recording of the emergency dispatch operator, the caller said there was a knock on the door. Someone told them, "We have your dog," and then a shot came through the door. So did they actually have the dog? Like, was the dog outside or in the garage where the shooter grabbed the dog? Police said shell casings were recovered at the scene. Tippecanoe County Sheriff Robert Goldsmith told CBS News there will be extra security at the courthouse for the foreseeable future. They weren't aware of any threats against the judge or others in the courthouse. Kimberly Meyer said in a statement she and her husband have great confidence in the Lafayette police investigation and thanked all agencies involved. We are incredibly grateful for the outpouring of support. Everyone has been so kind and compassionate. We would like to thank the medical personnel who provided care and assistance. Rush said in a statement, "I worry about the safety of all our judges. As you work to peacefully resolve more than 1 million cases a year, you must not only feel safe, you must also be safe. Any violence against a judge or a judge's family is completely unacceptable." She continued, "I know you join me in praying for Stephen Kim and their speedy recovery. Meanwhile, please remain vigilant in your own security." Lafayette Mayor Tony Roswarski said his thoughts and prayers are with the Meyer family. "I want to ensure the community every resource is being used to apprehend the individual." Court cases will go forward in Tippecanoe County, Indiana, where the chief judge has readied the state Supreme Court Office of Judicial Administration to assist. So my understanding is that this judge survived, and I didn't hear too much about his wife, but he survived and he's being treated. My understanding is that it was like a buckshot from a shotgun. So it was a spray, and I imagine what happened is he got hit maybe directly and his wife got hit too. If they were both at the door, I believe what I saw is that they shot through, the door was there, and then they shot the door. So they didn't, the door wasn't open. I believe they shot through the door. I could be wrong about that. Let's hope and pray that this judge and his wife have a speedy recovery. But when I was asked this question, the answer I gave was, I don't really worry too much about my safety because this is going to sound crazy, but it's true. I'm on the side of the bad guys, right? Like, that's how I am representing the people who were accused of the crimes. I am representing the defendants in a criminal case, okay? And let me qualify what that said. Like, I my politics and my deep beliefs are I tend to come down on the side of law enforcement. I think we should have very strict law and order. I support the police, law enforcement to the highest degree. But my job is also to preserve the rights of people who are accused of crimes, to defend them vigorously, because that's what our system is set up to do. Our system is set up for me to defend my clients vigorously, in order for the search for truth to work itself out. It's an adversarial system. Okay, so I believe very much in my job, but my politics are different. I believe politically, I believe in very strong and strict law enforcement, etc. But with that said, I am representing the people who did the bad thing usually, and so those are the people who are accused of the crimes are the ones who may be, them or their associates, that may be a actual threat to judges or prosecutors or police. But the defense attorney, while sometimes is bunched in there, generally is not. Sometimes the defense attorney can be bunched in there because they'll just say, oh, the defense lawyer is part of the same hypocrisy. They all work together. They all know each other. Blah, 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 blah. So the defense lawyer is just as culpable. And if you really look back in history, you'll see defense lawyers being targeted. But the truth is, nowadays, it's much more random. Like, this is kind of random. Whereas in the past, like when the mafia had its tendrils into everything, it wasn't unusual for the mob to attack judges, attack lawyers, attack police. If you ever see the history of the mafia in Italy, it was extremely violent towards the justice system itself. But in America in 2025, what you tend to see is these sort of lone shootings, and they just don't tend to target the defense lawyers. Now, obviously, like a disgruntled client could blame their defense lawyer for losing their case. And there's the great movie with Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte, escaping me right now. Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte. Cape Fear. Cape Fear is actually about a defendant who goes to jail on a plea deal accepted by his lawyer, and then when he gets out, he comes after the lawyer. So I love this movie, and as a big fan of De Niro, and I kind of disagree with his politics, but Robert De Niro is one of the best actors of all time. This is one of his best roles of all time, believe it or not. If you've never seen it and you appreciate good acting and you like stories about the legal system, please go watch Cape Fear. I mean, De Niro I just think he's amazing as this convict who gets out of jail and starts terrorizing his defense lawyer. But typically these days it tends to be, very unfortunately, sadly, judges or even prosecutors. But I think judges are the most common targets because they're the ones who generally make the final decision when they're going to punish somebody or find somebody guilty. So the person who's being punished, the energy gets directed at the judge, the decision maker. And they might say, oh, well, the lawyers were just doing their jobs, but the judge had the power to help me. He should have known I was innocent, blah, blah, blah. My other prediction here today is going to be that the shooter is a former defendant, and he was a party to a case, maybe a civil case, but a party to a case that this judge oversaw, and he wasn't happy with the way the decision went. One of the craziest, you guys, like, Google this, there's YouTube videos on it. One of the craziest things I ever saw was the lawyer who murdered his client the day before trial because he wasn't ready to go to trial. And that was just, that just blew me out of the water. You guys can Google that. Maybe I can talk about that one. But I've never really, I only really covered this because, it was on the national news, but the title, Judge Wife Shot and Wounded at Home in Lafayette, Indiana. The title of the CBS article was written terribly. Yeah, these AI generated or something, I don't know. AI might do a better job. But my guess is it was a defendant or somebody who had a case with this judge and had a guy is probably down on his luck and decided to take it out on the judge. Very, very sad. Even in Pittsburgh, I've read, like, there was, I think in the 70s, there was a judge, or there was some prominent lawyers who actually were murdered by the mafia. And the mafia has just been so tremendously weakened in 2025. It's just, to the degree it even exists, it's a shell of what it once was, and that's a good thing. But I think like organized crime used to kind of target people in law enforcement because they wanted them buttoned out of their activities. But nowadays it's more of like these lone shooter types that you get. You know, it's almost like I could talk about this. I was going to talk about this maybe a little bit when I talk about why women are attracted to murderers, right? But you know, we don't have as many serial killers nowadays, but we have the mass shooter, right? Instead of the serial killer, you have the mass shooter, which might create a similar body count or even a larger one than a serial killer. And what's the reasons for that? You know, I think that it's just become harder to be a serial killer because of advances in technology and law enforcement. And then, you know, we could talk about why are there mass shooters, right? It's, well, you know, because they want to gain fame and they want to go out in this big ball of fire. And with social media and the internet media these days, it's easy. If you do something like this, you're gonna live in infamy, even if you're not loved. You may live in infamy, and so these deep well springs of anger and emotion erupt into some terrible situations. So, all right, check out Cape Fear, and keep track of my scorecard. We're gonna build a docket. I hear what you're saying. I am not gonna just cover one case though. I'm gonna cover multiple cases. It would not be interesting enough to me to cover one case. I find it more fun and more interesting to cover multiple cases, although I can't go as in depth. So that's what we're going to do in this channel. We'll get to about 10. And I'm going to cover news that delves into criminal law, criminal world, criminal defense. And so we're going to keep a docket. And then I'm going to make predictions on these cases. And you guys can let me know, or we'll see how well we do. Have you heard about the judge murdered by the sheriff? I don't think that case. I saw that. Zephiel right in his office. That's an interesting one too. Maybe I will look into. But for now, we're gonna do Nick Reiner. We're gonna do Luigi. We're gonna do Busfield, and I'm gonna look into Tyler Robinson. There's gonna be so much reporting on Tyler Robinson, but I can do it. You know, what we follow the news articles, and I give you my analysis. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Please leave me comments on the video itself. Great for the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate the chats, but if you guys can, after this, when I hop off, jump onto this video, leave a comment. Hey, Joe gave great commentary. Da 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 da. You need to catch the algorithm in a variety of ways in order to be rewarded. So like, subscribe, share the video. Shares are freaking huge. Sharing it is huge. Hey, I think you might check this. Check it out. This guy I know, Joe, etc., etc. But and oh, sorry, I forgot to put my microphone close today, so the sound probably isn't that great. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Have a great night.